My name is Sam Russem, and I'm very happy to be kicking off Grantek's 2019 webinar series around missed opportunities. Today, we're going to be focusing on missed opportunities around smart manufacturing. We're going to start off with a little bit of an introduction around the Grantek Strategic Initiatives Program. We're going to talk about how that fits into our overall strategy around Industry 4.0. Then we're going to get right into our top 5 missed opportunities, and we'll talk about things to consider and tools that you can use if you encounter them. If you do have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to enter them into the chat window that should be a part of the interface, and our marketing team will forward over some of those to me. And if we don't get to your question, you're always welcome to follow up with us. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started with my favorite topic, me. So my name is Sam Russem. As I said, I am the director of the Smart Manufacturing practice at Grantek. I've been here for about 10 years, and I started in our automation group, doing controls and SCADA projects, sometimes as an embedded plant engineer, other times on a project basis. Then I went over to our manufacturing IT group, which was more focused on data collection and analytics and some higher level programming. Spent some time on some custom reporting solutions and large scale data acquisition projects there. And then as a senior project manager, I was responsible for managing enterprise level projects in the manufacturing IT, smart manufacturing, and traditional IT spaces. Now I lead our smart manufacturing practice, which is to help Grantek, our customers, and the industry as a whole to understand how we can be using software and data to better improve our manufacturing processes. I'd mentioned that smart manufacturing is one of Grantek's strategic initiatives, and it's one of 3. This is all Grantek's strategic way of approaching the Industry 4.0 paradigm as a whole. The other 2 initiatives that we have are around industrial safety, increasing productivity through smart safety solutions, and the IT, OT, and cybersecurity group, which focuses on the foundation for maintaining manufacturing connectivity, availability, and security. We all follow a similar model around education, assessment, and then design to help bring these solutions to our customers. Today, clearly, we're working on bubble number 1 around some seminars and training to educate the wider audience about what we do. Let's set the stage a little bit by talking about smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0. As manufacturers, we're running into Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing all the time. As of last year, according to some surveys done by MESA, 44% of manufacturers surveyed have done multiple smart manufacturing projects, but still over a third are not yet involved or are still in the research and discovery phases of this initiative. Now, there's a lot of ways out there to summarize and categorize Industry 4.0, its value drivers, and its component parts. One of the ones that we like is from McKinsey, as it categorizes Industry 4.0 value drivers around services and after sales, resources and process, asset utilization, labor, inventories, quality, supply and demand, and time to market. Now, if you go into more of the detailed levers, you'll find that one of the things that they all have in common is around this physical to digital system loop. Here we have something from Deloitte, which talks about how we use the physical world and establish a digital record from it, send this over to a computerized system to analyze and visualize that information, and provide insights that then should be implemented into the physical world again. This digital to physical world loop is something that's very common across Industry 4.0 and something we're going to see a lot of. So what's smart manufacturing at Grantek? Our smart manufacturing practice is focused on understanding our client needs and then using that to help develop the strategies and services that Grantek can be providing to our clients. While there's a lot of things that Industry 4.0 covers and smart manufacturing too, today our focus is mostly in MES and MOM systems, analytics and machine learning, and digital twins and simulation. As Grantek works to become one of the premier providers of turnkey Industry 4.0 solutions, our smart manufacturing team is a key piece of that puzzle. Essentially, we focus on how to collect data, transform that into usable information, and then provide that value to manufacturing businesses. A lot of what we cover today is going to be focused on smart manufacturing, but can help you along your Industry 4.0 journey as a whole as well. So that's what smart manufacturing means to Grantek. But what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to your company? How does your organization plan to evolve and adapt to Industry 4.0 trends? We always recommend that you start with your business goals and then figure out how to apply the technologies that are available to advance your business. You need to understand where you are, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. And hopefully with some of the missed opportunities and lessons learned we go through today, will help you along that process. So with that, let's get into the real meat of our presentation today around missed opportunities in a smart manufacturing transformation. For each of the 5 opportunities I'm going to talk about in the following slides, we're going to talk about a general topic, put forth a scenario where if you've caught yourself into something similar, that might ring off a couple of alarm bells in your head, talk about the opportunity, and get into a couple of tips around implementation. Again, at the end of this, we'll go through a couple of questions that are out there for the group, and we'll wrap it up. Our first missed opportunity today is all around big picture planning. So the scenario we're talking about, and for this part, is you're in the planning phases of a smart manufacturing initiative. You have well-documented requirements, and you have your business case all worked out. You're probably working on things like vendor selection and more detailed project plans. One of the opportunities that we see missed in this space sometimes is to make sure that you're planning for the big picture future state and to help you focus on business value, simplify architectures, and reduce the long-term and even short-term cost of the solution you're working on. A smart manufacturing transformation is a large initiative, and it's going to be broken out into smaller components to make it manageable. But we're always going to want to keep our eye on the big picture and the overall business goals of the project. If you find yourself inside of some deep debate around a feature or a detail, it's always a good opportunity to step back and frame it in the terms of your larger purpose. It's also what's going to have some medium benefits, like eliminating redundant licensing, becoming more efficient with your compute power and your architectures, avoiding non-value add work and dual entry, and avoiding black box solutions. One of the most powerful tools to help you along with your big picture planning is your OSA, or Operation Systems Architecture. These models are based on the ISA 95 manufacturing system models. Usually they address things like production, quality, maintenance, and inventory management, again, aligned with ISA 95. It's going to show you what kinds of tools you have at each level of operations and how they interact. And it's a great tool to help describe your as-is and your desired to-be state. We won't get into it in too much detail here, but it's good to have a base understanding of the ISA 95 manufacturing data hierarchy model that we base a lot of our OSAs on, where it takes you from level 0 through 4, where level 0 is your physical process, level 1 and 2 are your digital production process or control processes, level 3 is your MES MOM systems, and level 4 is more your business planning and logistics or ERP systems. One of the key things that you'll notice as we move from one level to the next is the frequency at which they handle the data that comes into them, where level 0 is very real time and very tied in with the physical world, and level 4 is a much longer time frame, is more of your long-term business decisions. As we're creating OSAs, what we do is we break out our different levels in a similar way, and we figure out what types of solutions we have in each. Now, I don't have specific things named on the right to protect some information here, but just generally think of different colored boxes as maybe different vendors of systems, and we're showing the different pieces of that you have in place and how they interact. Again, each of these is going to be mapped to ISA 95 to help figure out what our as-is state is going to look like. As we think about what our 5-year plan is going to be around a smart manufacturing transformation, clearly one of the things we're going to work on is the to-be state for this. And the evolution from the as-is state to the to-be is probably something that's going to happen over multiple phases of a project. Overall, we're looking for opportunities to consolidate information and be efficient with things like databases and compute power. So if we're looking at our to-be state, you can see how this immediately helps to influence the design of some of the other documents that we're going to encounter across our smart manufacturing transformation. For example, this would easily facilitate some server and network architecture design. You know you're going to be continually evolving and iterating on these documents throughout your smart manufacturing transformation. Redundant functions and features are very easy to identify this way too. Database consolidation is always a great example of that. If I can start saving licensing by consolidating this number of SQL database licenses I need, that can result in immediate savings for the business. And then finally, this can also help you to identify and reduce potential rework. So bringing it back to big picture planning, again, we want to take a look at the future state and focus on the business value, simplify architectures, reduce cost. The benefits of this are simpler and more cost-effective systems, but some of the risks that we want to watch out for is that this does sometimes it takes time to go through this consideration, and sometimes you sacrifice some near-term results to make sure that you have the longer-term strategy in mind. One of the tools we talked about for using this is that OSA Operation Systems Architecture, and a common technique is to do your as-is and to-be gap analysis to help you along. The next missed opportunity we're going to talk about is around education on standards and best practices. Our scenario, once again, we find ourselves in the planning phase of a smart manufacturing initiative. However, planning is time-consuming. We're reviewing a lot of material like case studies, white papers, peer groups, and best-in-class plants, but sometimes it's not all linking together the way that we want it to. Really, embarking on a smart manufacturing journey can be a great opportunity to relearn the standards and best practices in the industry and use those as a planning and research tool as the foundation for the rest of the research you'll be doing. Again, we want to talk about this as an opportunity for education for yourself and for your team. If these are new terms to you, I highly recommend we look them up. If they are familiar, it might be worth it to go and make sure that you're updated on the latest standards as either continuing education for yourself or to learn something new. If you are familiar with them also, how about the rest of your team? This can provide a great baseline, common language for everybody to be working from throughout this initiative and others. One of the most common standards that we always refer to, which we've already seen here a little bit, is around ISA 95, which Grantek uses extensively as we work to model manufacturing environments and capture requirements. The standard's been around for almost 30 years, and actually most manufacturing software in the market today also leverages these standards in much of its design. According to a 2016 survey, 74% of organizations adopt ISA 95 to shape the decisions on their MES systems. One of the other standards and best practices bodies that we rely on quite a bit is MESA International. Grantek works collaboratively with organizations like MESA to develop best practices, and we also work with them to present at industry forums and help to develop other case studies. They have, in addition to their education programs, they have a number of certification processes. For example, you can have a number of recognized practitioners on staff and become a MESA recognized business. But for more information on MESA, we are actually very happy to have Mike Yost, the president of MESA International, joining us today. Just going to talk a little bit more about their organization. So, Mike, hopefully the webinar transfer is going to work. I should be flipping over to your slide now, and you should be able to talk to this a little bit more.
Excellent. Thanks, Great. Sam. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to be here. As Sam mentioned, my name is Mike Yost. I'm the president of MESA International. For those of you who are not familiar with MESA, we're a 27-year-old industrial nonprofit industry association. Our focus is to help educate industry on both how and why you use modern information technologies in manufacturing. Over the past almost 30 years, those technologies have changed, obviously, but still the focus is the same. And you heard Sam talk through it already as far as understanding current state, future state, business value. MESA talks all the time about living at the intersection between manufacturing and IT. That's both from a technology perspective and an application perspective, as well as from an organizational perspective. So again, our focus is primarily on best practice sharing and education, networking, and things like that. So I just want to take a minute just to sort of fall in line with what Sam's talking about here today. Let people know that there are other people out there that have experience and are in the same boat that you are. Guarantee you, no matter what situation you're in, there are people that are in the same boat, or people that have come from where you are, or people that could benefit by hearing from you and learning with you and from you. So I just want to bring up two quick slides here to talk about MESA. Actually, this isn't even talking about MESA. This is from a research project survey that we did last January, because at MESA, we don't really care, as we don't make bets on technology. What we really care to do is to understand where people are and help move the industry forward. So we asked the question quite simply, as a manufacturer, how do you see smart manufacturing? Do you see it as something that's transformational and strategic to your business? Do you see it as just the next phase of continuous improvement, or is it too soon to tell? Do you not really know what to call it at this point? And as you'll see, about a quarter of the people see the big picture, see the big transformational impact that they believe smart manufacturing can and will have on their organizations. And it means that 3/4 of the folks are looking at it as too soon to tell, that they're not clear at this point, or that it's the next way to continue what we've already been doing for many years, which is getting better at what we do every shift of every day. So to me, that tells us from a baseline perspective that there's a lot of different opinions out there, and that work that's happening, just like Sam is doing here today, to talk people through best practices, lessons learned, things like that, is critical for everybody to share and learn and grow together. So Sam, if you could go to the next slide. And actually, I think this is a number of builds, Sam. So if you just want to go ahead and hit them all.
There you go.
That would be good. Yeah, thank you. So I just, you could probably come up with as many different definitions of smart manufacturing as there are people to define them. I offer this one up for a reason. So if I just step through, essentially what this definition is highlighting is it's about delivering information to enable the optimization of production activities, right? So from the time we get an order until we're finished creating the product, leveraging the current real-time accurate data to guide the plant activities as they occur and to respond to conditions as they change, and focusing on the non-value add activities so that your plant's more effective and your processes run better. We talked about the business value, improving the return on operational assets, improving your delivery, turns, gross margin, et cetera, are all critical components of smart manufacturing. And then lastly, making sure that the mission critical information coming out of your production activities are tied across the enterprise and with the supply chain. So I've offered this definition up a number of times with folks and gotten into a lot of good conversations. To me, it doesn't talk quite enough about the people aspects. Other people will talk, as far as cyber-physical systems and a number of different ways. But I really offer it up because, as you see, this is not the definition of MES from MESA's perspective. I'm sorry, this is not the definition of smart manufacturing from MESA's perspective. This is actually the definition of MES from 1997. So I don't do this to be flippant or to be a smart aleck here, but just to show people that while I don't equate MES to smart manufacturing on a one-to-one basis, a lot of what we're chasing and what people are looking for, and a lot of those levers that Sam pointed to earlier as far as using to deliver value are things that are that we've been working on for a long time. And there are standards, there are people that could be trusted as advisors and partners in helping figure out how to move forward together. And so that's the main thing that I like to do when showing people this is I think anybody who makes the argument that smart manufacturing is completely new is missing a point like this. And I think similarly, anybody that thinks that it's still locked in 1997 is also missing the boat. So, so Sam, just one last slide here, I think, from a MESA perspective.
That's right.
And essentially, that's just to thank Grantek for their continued support as contributors to MESA. And I always say that the members win when members contribute. And so the best way to do that is to get involved. The next opportunity from a face-to-face perspective to get involved is first week in April. We will have our North American conference in Pittsburgh. It will be co-located with the Industry Week Manufacturing and Technology Expo. And information about that can be found on our website. Certainly, I will offer up my contact information at any time. You can check with Sam and the webcast team here. Glad to have any conversations with anybody about joining the MESA community and getting value for yourselves. So thanks, Sam.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, I definitely couldn't endorse the 2019 conference enough. Last year was my first time going to the MESA conference down in Raleigh, and was really a great educational session. And having it right there with the M&T conference is really fantastic too. So you can look across a whole bunch of things. So Mike, thanks a lot for talking about MESA. And let's go ahead and we'll tie this back to that opportunity around education. So again, there's an opportunity to justify an education for yourself and kind of going out and readdressing some of the literature and the work that's been out there. The benefits are huge, that you get to not only learn a lot of the standards and best practices that are commonly accepted out there, but also this is the foundation of some education that's going to go beyond just your smart manufacturing and really could change the language and the way that you think about manufacturing as a whole. And for a risk or caveat that is virtually non-existent, I couldn't think of a good way to, or a reason to not do this. Some of the tools, if you did want to go and check out those websites, MESA's website is mesa.org, and then ISA's website as well is isa.org. And again, the technique that I would recommend around this is, if this is all a little bit new to you, to start with those standards. They really do provide that good foundation to build from as you continue your education and your research into these initiatives. Okay. So our next missed opportunity is around new and changing project management philosophies. So to get into the scenario on this one, we've moved on from the planning phase, and now you're mostly concerned around execution of a project or a set of projects for your smart manufacturing initiative. You're putting together all of your project plans, doing your fancy Gantt charts and things like that. Now, the missed opportunity, the challenge that I would have for you, would be to potentially try a new project management philosophy for efficient smart manufacturing deployments. Here you see my time in our enterprise project management group coming in. One of the reasons that I think this is really important around smart manufacturing is just the differences around the way that change can be handled and the way that iteration is handled. So unlike a lot of projects where change can be a dirty word because change usually means cost and change orders, change should be an accepted part of the process on smart manufacturing initiatives. By default, you are doing something new and enabling your operations teams to have more power and insight into the process. Collecting feedback from those users is a critical piece of what you're doing and something you should be looking for. If people aren't suggesting changes, it means they aren't using it. And then you need to be able to seize opportunities from those insights as well. Value-add changes should be encouraged, not discouraged. The other thing that's very different is the smart manufacturing software landscape changes at a much faster pace than a lot of the other traditional manufacturing software. We see monthly or quarterly release cycles in a space where we're used to seeing major revisions happen months, if not years, apart from each other. And new products are introduced at a very high rate in this space, and it's very competitive. We're certainly moving around from away from a lot of the SCADA titans of past and moving towards a much different development cycle for a lot of this technology. So maybe our project management philosophy needs to change as well. The traditional project management philosophy that many of us are going to default to is the traditional waterfall model. Not that there's anything wrong with this. Of course, it's created very many successful projects in the years it's been in practice. And there's a lot of benefits to this too. For example, the clear path from beginning to end. The waterfall model was made for projects that specifically have high pieces of investment early on in the project, that if that part has failed, the rest of it is just no longer valid. Like if you're constructing a building, you need the foundation and the concrete to be poured before you can put up the walls. Now, software has taken a couple of different approaches as it's designed to be more iterative. Agile and Scrum management are one of the more popular terms around this. Again, comes from roots in software development itself. And one of those reasons that it requires less upfront planning and is designed to continuously adapt to evolving requirements. So you put out a release, you collect feedback on that release, you decide what you want to do for your next sprint, and put that into the next release of a project. It is very much designed around iteration. A couple of things to make sure you're considering in that. This is still a project, and projects by definition have a beginning and an end. Sorry, not or. So even though you are planning multiple cycles and you are working towards and you're keeping iteration as a part of the process, you are still working towards an end product, and there needs to be a time that you say it's complete. The other thing is that even though it requires less upfront planning is still very important, or else my first missed opportunity would have been a non-starter. But definitely you still want to understand your business goals and what you're trying to accomplish with the tool. And that also, it helps a lot to make sure that the individual sprints that you're creating are still tied back to your business value. Another project management philosophy that often comes into play, and could go with either of those direct management philosophies, is the past principle of plan all, start small. So this goes and really emphasizes that you want to do a lot of your planning up front, understand what that big future state is going to look like, but make sure that you are carving off individual projects and initiatives in right-sized chunks to manage the amount of change that your organization can handle. Also, managing those lessons learned on a smaller project sprint basis can have input and feedback loops back to your overall portfolio. And sometimes there's real benefits to being creative. For example, one customer we worked with, we followed what we called the crisscross model. They had two plants that they wanted to have be some centers of excellence and have some improvements done, but they had different priorities of what they wanted to see first. So we implemented, say, technology A at site 1, technology B at site 2 for their initial pilots. Then we essentially did a rollout proof of concept to make sure that what we did on technology B would still apply to the first site and vice versa. Once this was all done, we had a package of both initiatives, A and B, that we can go through and to do a national rollout across multiple sites. The message here is that you have an opportunity to get creative. You really get to, I would really encourage you to look at project management philosophies and ideas that maybe haven't been accepted by the business, and think about the pros and cons of how they could fit into this specific initiative and your culture in general. Really challenge your go-tos and standards and ask yourself questions. So the benefits here are particularly around managing a project better, and especially around change control and iteration. However, this is one of the higher risk opportunities that I am talking about. Certainly managing a large project using a new methodology can be a lot to take on at one time, and there are potential faults that you might have from things falling through the cracks. So while it's definitely something I recommend you consider, don't take it too lightly either. One of the tools I would absolutely recommend for this is to refer to the Project Management Book of Knowledge, or PMBOK. In fact, the most recent edition, I believe it's volume 6, released last year, incorporated a lot more agile methodologies into the standard waterfall that the book would generally rely on. And some of the techniques that we just talked about, waterfall models, agile and scrum, and the PASS principle. So before I get to our final two missed opportunities, I'm going to stop for a minute just to have a little bit of a change of framework for our heads. For numbers 1, 2, and 3, we were mostly talking about planning and strategy. 4 and 5 are missed opportunities in a different way. Now we're assuming that you have some smart manufacturing solutions out there, and you're looking to find more value or low-hanging fruit out of those solutions to provide immediate benefit to your organization. And the first one is a very common one that we hear, a common business driver for a lot of these initiatives in the first place, and that is going paperless. Our scenario for this one is that we already have smart manufacturing technologies in place, say OEE and downtime tracking, and some analytics and advanced reporting. These projects may be considered successful and are already considered value-add solutions to you and your organization. So our question is, what are, if any, the low-effort, high-value opportunities that we can explore to really expand upon our business and get the most out of these tools? Going paperless is a very common one that comes up. We have an opportunity to replace as many paper systems as possible with our new user interfaces and data storage methods. Let's talk about it a little bit more. So oftentimes when we're talking about going through a paperless initiative, these are the questions that commonly come up. How do we get the data? How do we turn that data into information? How do we present the information? How do we store the data? And how do we retain the data? So first, let's compare paper solutions to paperless solutions. On the collection end, on paper, it's pretty simple. You write it down on the paper. Whereas on paperless, you have more opportunities for automated collection from PLCs, HMIs, SCADA, MES, ERP. Anything that's on the network is fair game. As for transformation, on paper, there's generally two ways. You're going to either be doing manual calculations, or you're going to be manually entering your paper data into Excel and running it through reports that way. Whereas a paperless solution already has this information transcribed to a digital system, and now you have a lot more powerful digital tools to transform it automatically. For presentation, on paper, there's the common shared drive solution for Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, or printing it out and posting it on a report or on a bulletin board in the office. For a paperless solution, you still have options to print it out, but you're more able to rely on digital reports and dashboards. As for storage, the paper solution is usually a file cabinet or keeping it into that shared drive that you put it on with Excel. Whereas with paperless, databases are going to be your go-to data storage method, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. And then finally, for retention. In paper, you either need more file cabinets or more disk space to store things on an offsite backup. Paperless, when we're talking about databases, retention is very simple and database backups are very easy and achievable by most groups. So we've all heard a lot about the benefits between a paper-based system and digital systems. Let's start talking about all those paperless technologies and the way that that applies to smart manufacturing. Again, thinking that you probably already have a lot of these tools in there. If one of the problems is being able to connect to other digital systems throughout your facility, you've probably established inherent connectivity by applying your smart manufacturing initiative. In transformation, not only do we already have the information in databases, but now we probably have more advanced analytics and machine learning tools that we could be using as well. As far as presentation goes, we probably have reporting and dashboarding tools within our smart manufacturing technology that supports our paperless initiatives. For storage, we talked earlier when looking at OSAs about how you consolidate databases. And as for retention, again, your database backups for your MES systems, your smart manufacturing systems, and your general paperless systems are going to be a very, very simple way, an easy, efficient way to get that information retained long term. Some other things to think about. One of the main things is around data integrity. This has been a very hot topic, especially over the last couple of years in the life science industry in particular. The idea being that you need to be able to prove that the information that you collect and store in your digital system, in any system really, is accurate and properly expresses the situation that the data is trying to represent, and that all of that data is unalterable and attributable to those that collected it. Sometimes these are cited as reasons to not go paperless, but I would argue the opposite, that to be able to demonstrate that the data is collected is true and accurate, it should be easier to prove that through a digital record, your testing documentation, and your sign-offs than the fact that Bob signed something off on a piece of paper one day. So as we're talking about going paperless, some of the benefits are, of course, that you will have more reliable data storage and retrieval. And of course, there are some intangible benefits too, like environmental impact. But we also do want to consider some new things like establishing data integrity and the trail of data throughout the life cycle. We have a whole lot of tools from our smart manufacturing toolkit to help us with this, including new databases, SCADA and MES systems, and reporting tools. For techniques, I'd recommend we prioritize digitization, not automation. What I mean by that is that even if it means that an operator is going to a screen to type in information that they previously wrote down, you're probably already getting an advantage just from the digital record process itself, from having all of your data in one place, and to not have to deal with those pesky pieces of paper flying all around your plant. Our final missed opportunity we're talking to today is probably one of our most important. So if you stuck around for the whole time, this is your reward. We're talking about turning information into action. Missed opportunity scenario is actually kind of very similar to what we had the last time. So we're still talking about a situation where you have smart manufacturing technologies in place, and we are very happy that we're collecting new data and we have new reports and KPIs that are being generated out of the system. What we run into a lot of the time is the concept of to go back a little bit, a lot of smart manufacturing initiatives talk about transforming data into information. And that is, of course, important, but the true value comes when you turn that information into a follow-up action. And that's really the purpose of the whole cycle we talked about earlier, in using your physical systems to create a digital record, using digital systems to make analysis and recommendations based on that information, and then to apply that again to the physical world. You have to remember to close that loop as we go through the process. So as we talk about information driving action, we're going to take a look at two examples. The first one being OEE. So let's say we have a new OEE system in place. We have our MES to collect new data, such as part counts, machine states, faults, and production and context. And we might have some OEE information too that transforms that data into information, performance, throughput, quality, and a fault analysis. But by having the dashboards on screens, putting this in front of supervisors and operators, we may not still see the value gains that we had hoped for. A similar problem might happen with an analytics solution. Say that we have our golden batch solution where we've established our limits of tolerance around a golden batch. We're tracing data in real time, and we're even alarming operators on potential deviations. But maybe my batches are still deviating more than I expected, and I'm having more waste than I really wanted to, and I hope to gain out of the solution. One of the primary drivers for this that you might find is a lack of information driving action. So sure, your dashboards and your KPIs can help, but continuous improvement programs are absolutely necessary to get the most value out of your smart manufacturing system. You should be defining your next set of projects inspired by the new smart manufacturing data and information that you're collecting. Something like a Lean Six Sigma continuous improvement process can be critical to this, following models like DMAIC, where you define, measure, analyze, improve, and control your processes in a cyclical way. Again, this is all cycles upon cycles, where we're just doing continuous improvement based on projects and information that was previously unavailable to us. One of our recommendations in this space is actually to brainstorm what types of problems you'll want to be able to solve and what types of projects you'll want to be able to drive before you even start your smart manufacturing initiative. Say you want to be able to start a project to reduce your top downtime reason by 50%, or work with the quality group to reduce defects. Or maybe again, if I needed to improve throughput, I want to apply new machine learning algorithms to our bottleneck system to increase throughput by a certain percentage. You should be able to come up with some of these sample project types before you even start your smart manufacturing transformation. That'll help you to define the value that you need and where you're trying to go. So looking a little bit more at turning information into action, the benefits are huge. These are the hugely significant value gains, and this is you realizing the true value of your smart manufacturing investments. It does mean more projects, and that should be planned for at the very beginning of your project plans. Your tools, in this case, are your suite of smart manufacturing platforms, and there's a lot of techniques out there to use too. For example, Lean Six Sigma, and just a documented continuous improvement program. So unfortunately, everybody, all good things must come to an end, and that has been our 5 missed opportunities for today. Just to recap before I get into questions, our first one was around big picture planning. Again, we want to make sure we're planning for the big picture future state and focusing on business value, simplifying architectures, and reducing cost and rework. The next one we talked about was the opportunity to use your smart manufacturing initiative to update yourselves on the standards and best practices that are out there today. Then we talked about the opportunity to try to implement some new project management methodologies. So some new philosophies should definitely be at least thought through to see if they might apply better to your process. Once we actually have some smart manufacturing technologies in place, you definitely have an opportunity to finally do what you've been saying for a while and go paperless. Replace as many paper systems as you can with digital storage methods. And then finally, turning information into action. Getting data to information is one thing. Using this to actually drive continuous improvement is where you're going to find your biggest returns. That covers the most of what we wanted to talk about today in the webinar. I'm going to check my chat really quickly from the marketing team and see if we have any good questions for me to get to. All right, looks like I have a couple coming in. All right, one that I have here is, this is an interesting one. We've gotten this one before. The question is, early in the presentation, we talked about OEE as a smart manufacturing tool. And they're kind of asking, is OEE really smart manufacturing? Because they've had it in their plan for years, and that makes a lot of sense. I don't necessarily have a missed opportunity around this, but let's talk about it a bit. So this is a little bit, I think, intentionally cloudy. So the question is OEE a smart manufacturing tool? Especially given, so actually I might go back to Mike's point a little bit about how a lot of the features that we still attribute to smart manufacturing systems have been around in the marketplace for many years now, and things like MES, the requirements around that and how it relates to smart manufacturing were defined all the way back in '97. So just that we have a tool out there doesn't mean that it's not still a way of collecting data, turning that information, and turning that into actionable improvements better than we could before. And there also doesn't need to be a clear line, I would say, between what is Industry 4.0 and what isn't. Again, as long as we're using new facets of technology to manufacture better than we can before, I would say that we are on the right track. I would say that technically, a lot of times OEE falls under performance management. Performance management is an aspect of MES, and MES is absolutely a pillar of smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0, and often a prerequisite system too. I've seen quite a few articles about how Industry 4.0 is really about going beyond OEE, but to do so, you need to have your OEE system in place. So I would say this is a very, very long way of answering. Yes, I do think that having an OEE system in place is a good step in the direction of your smart manufacturing journey. And if that's not feeling high tech enough for you, let's talk about how to take it to the next level and figure out how to better apply it to your specific business needs. Okay, let me check this chat again real quick. Okay, so another question I have in here is on one of the early slides. We talked about the Grantek Smart Manufacturing team being focused on MESMOM, analytics, and simulation. And the question was, what about the other pillars of Industry 4.0? So absolutely, we plan on getting into these, and it is definitely within Grantek's goal of becoming a key turnkey Industry 4.0 provider to be able to cover a lot of things like advanced robotics and additive manufacturing and other pillars of Industry 4.0. You know, everyone has limited resources, and we want to make sure that we're focusing on the things that are going to bring the most immediate value to our customers. A lot of the people that we've been talking to, I would say that a lot of the headspace these days is around MES MOM systems. Some of the more forward thinkers are sometimes thinking around analytics and machine learning. And then digital twins and simulation, we kind of feel is one of the more emerging technologies that's going to hit more of our customers in the near term. So that's kind of based on our research and our portfolio and figuring out where we wanted to focus our immediate efforts. But this is the team that is in charge of our Industry 4.0 initiative overall. And if you have anything, and it's our job to research a lot of this and make sure we're picking the right tools to help our customers out. So if there's a pillar that you're particularly interested in that I did not mention, you can absolutely still talk to us about it. If there is value that we can bring to you along that pillar, that is my job to start to learn about it. So I'm absolutely curious to hear more. All right, let me see if I got anything else. Okay, here's a good one. Someone asked, who from my company should I be engaging with to begin a new smart manufacturing initiative? Stakeholder management and selection is absolutely a huge part of these initiatives. Should be done very early in the planning phases, and is usually one of the things that will challenge people with pretty early on in an investigation, is to figure out who your primary stakeholders are and who needs to be pulled in. So most organizations that successfully go around a smart manufacturing journey create a smart manufacturing or Industry 4.0 center of excellence that has proper representation from a couple of different groups around the organization. It depends on the way your particular company is organized, but a lot of times we see somebody from operations, someone from the quality group, someone from engineering, a C-level executive who is the primary sponsor for the initiative as a whole, and someone from supply chain as well. And that can vary significantly, you know, again, based on what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve from it, and the specific areas that you want to target. And it's an evolving team as well, right? So usually you'll sit down in your first couple of planning sessions, you'll be talking through a lot of the areas that you can investigate, and you might realize that a lot of the answers are in a person's head that might not be in that meeting. Clearly a good opportunity to bring them in. So that's what I would recommend, is to try to figure out where your center of excellence needs to lie, who should be a part of that, and have your primary stakeholder group for the scope of the engagement you're looking for. If it's an enterprise engagement, look across the enterprise. If it's a plant level engagement, look across your plants. And just, yeah, I would start with those department heads from different areas and use that as a starting point and go from there. Okay, great. I think I'm going to take one more question. Okay, I do see one around the project management section that we talked about, asking if I recommend Agile Scrum management for smart manufacturing projects. And my answer is my go-to for everything, which is it depends. So not necessarily, but maybe. So I'm encouraging you to use this opportunity to look at other methodologies. I'm not prescribing that you definitely take one over the other. I think it's a matter of really looking at your industry and the way that your plant is organized, what you all are familiar with, your needs of the project, and seeing what you can take on. For example, if you're some arguments I've seen, for example, to go towards a waterfall model were more around training operators. I've seen customers where one of their goals in the initiative was to minimize the amount of operator training they needed to do, in which case we wanted to have a very complete packaged solution to hand over to them, so we only needed to go through that training exercise once. However, I've seen other customers that have said that they do have, that they are actively engaging in other parts of their business, and there's a lot of change. Just generally, they are very volatile, and the requirements they have were more likely to change over time than others. So that might be something where agile is a better situation. So I definitely recommend you do a little bit of research, figure out what's out there and some of the pros and cons to each, and figure out what is going to fit you, your company, and the vendors and that you're working with, and the way that you work the best. Okay. Sorry, just a minute. I did see one other question come in around. Okay, I see. I think I understand the question. They're asking about when we talked about our new user interface. Is Grantek selling a specific user interface that we've come up with, or is there something else we're talking about there? So what I believe that's referring back to the paperless section. And I talked about how we have some of the tools available to us through our smart manufacturing solutions. They're going to make that a lot easier. And I probably talked about our new user interface as a part of that. No, I'm not talking about some off-the-shelf Grantek solution. In general, though, for most smart manufacturing initiatives that you're going to go through, you're either connecting to new SCADA screens, or maybe you have new MES screens, or maybe you have new smart manufacturing software screens that are out there on the floor. All of these are points of potential data entry, depending on what's actually at the hands of the operators and the people that needs to use it. I would say that for a lot of the times, especially when we're talking about going paperless, the platform doesn't matter as much. It's just a matter of how can we get the data, how do we get it into the system, and then how do we use that to get some of that paper out of there and get those benefits around storage and retrieval of that information. Okay. So it sounds like most of the questions have stopped trickling in. If you did have one that went out there and I didn't get to it, I'm sorry, we're about time. We need to wrap up today anyways. If you do have a question, you want to follow up with somebody, and you don't have a contact at Grantek directly to be working with, info@grantek.com is definitely a good way to get in touch with us. Let me close it with a couple of thank yous really quickly. Also, a huge thank you goes out to Mike Yost and MESA International for their contributions to the industry in general, but particularly you being able to join us and talk a little bit about MESA today. I also want to do a little bit of a shout out to Inductive Automation, as this was a vendor neutral presentation. We very much meant it to be so. They were still interested in getting the discussion out there in the community and did some co-marketing with us, and I very much appreciate that. So thank you to Inductive Automation as well. And with that, I will close it off for the day. Again, my name is Sam Russem. If you want to get a hold of me, you can email us at info@grantek.com. Find us on LinkedIn through our website. We are happy to talk to you about what we talked about in the presentation today, as well as more about your smart manufacturing transformation as a whole. So again, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for your time today, and you will have a great rest of your day.